What's up, boys and girls? I'm Chris. This is Mike Michaels. We have a special guest today named Cheyenne Zoelle. Did I say that right?
Yes, Zoelle.
Okay, cool. So Zoelle is I think our third or fourth guest on the Chris and Mike show, which is pretty cool. She wrote a book. She's going to tell us all about it. We're going to have some Q&A. We're going to find out a little bit more about her life, and where she's at, and how she's gotten from point A to point B. And as always, this is Free Man by Nemesis. So I'm ready when you are. How about you, Cheyenne? You ready?
I'm ready. Sorry about
Mike,
my
you
cat
ready?
in the background.
I am definitely ready.
All right, so here we go. So, Cheyenne, you wrote a book about being a part of your life, actually kind of a unique life story, right? And that's how we kind of found you on a platform for podcasters. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners and share a little bit about yourself and what you have done.
Absolutely. I'm Cheyenne Zoelle, and right now I'm currently a certified life coach. I'm also studying to become a therapist. And because of my unique background and life story, I really wanted to use my platform to help others because I survived really the unthinkable, and that was being kidnapped on multiple occasions by different men.
So hold on, because Mike and I talked about this. The unique thing about your story is you were kidnapped multiple times by multiple men.
Correct.
So
yeah, it's horrible enough to imagine being that happening to you once by one person.
Yes.
So was it a situation? I'm sure you're going to go down to this, but we like to interject conversations so it's not just one person, talking, because that gets boring. So, was it something to where you're kidnapped and then you got away from that kidnapper and then you're re-kidnapped again, or was it something to where you were kidnapped and then in the dregs of that, then all of a sudden you were kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of slave traded, or you know what I mean?
That's a great question.
And at what age did this happen the first time?
Yes, good point, Mike.
Great question. They all happened when I was 21 years old.
Okay.
So the first time I was kidnapped, it was when I was at a bar, and I was in a very broken place. I came from a horrifically abusive childhood, which I talk about in the book. In fact, my therapist said my childhood was the most abusive, horrifying ones that she had ever encountered.
Wow.
By your birth parents?
Yes. My mother was a very toxic woman, and my childhood was filled with torture and abuse and very horrific things that I've made multiple therapists cry from hearing about my life.
Oh
So
my God.
I was very broken, and I allowed myself to be in very dangerous situations, and that led to my first kidnapping.
Gotcha. So you're in a bar.
Yes, I was in a bar, and I was being young, dumb, 21 years old. This was 8 years ago.
Okay.
And some friends that I had made decided to leave me.
Oh.
And I am blacking out. And this was the first kidnapping. The next thing I know, I'm talking to an older gentleman. The next thing I know, he has me in the back of the cab. The next thing I know, he has me in a motel room, and he's on top of me. And it was very horrible, and things happened that I could not consent to.
Sure.
That was the first time. Though, as horrible as that sounds, the other kidnappings were so much worse and so much more brutal.
Okay, well,
and the other
before we go that, let's close this one up. So you're kidnapped by this older man. You're in the bar. All of a sudden, you wake up in a hotel room. He's on top of you doing things that you didn't consent to, which we can use our imaginations. So, what was the outcome of that? You got away from him. You went back home. Fill the gap there between the first and the second time.
Thank you. That's actually a very good point. So, he was on top of me. I wake up to him on top of me. Terrible things are happening, and then I pass out again. I passed out because it was during my party years, and I wake up and he had left, and he left me some money and just had thrown money at me. It was very terrifying, and it was technically a kidnapping because I could not consent, and he took me from the bar
Absolutely.
to the cab, this motel room.
Right.
And he, saw just a young drunk girl and said, I'm going to take her. And that is exactly what happened. And it was very brutal when he was on top of me, and it was a very horrifying situation.
I can't even imagine.
No. And being a father of a daughter, I can't imagine that happening to my daughter.
And I don't know if you know this, but Chris and I played in a hard rock band in the 90s. We founded a band that opened for national acts, and
Oh, wow.
we saw those kind of things potentially happening right in front of our eyes.
Sure.
You know, at shows we were at. And I always felt sorry for definitely the women, because you just hit on a key that a lot of people don't think about. You could not consent because you physically could not overcome the person that was on top of you, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So there's no potential for you to say yes to any of the events that happened that night. When it was all said and done, did he just leave and left you there?
Yes, I came to and I was naked on this bed in a strange, stingy motel room with a pile of money thrown at me, and he was gone.
Wow.
And it was a very terrifying situation, and I write about it in the book where my phone had died, so I have no way to call for an Uber. I'm alone. There's no one around.
Wow.
And I start walking. I'm wearing my bright red party dress, a sparkly dress, and I'm walking down the highway trying to get back to town.
Okay.
And this miraculous thing happens, and I talk about this in the book, where this guy driving a truck, a delivery truck, he does a U-turn and he comes back, he sees me. And at the time, it was just now beginning to be dawn. So that man had me for several hours.
Gotcha.
And this man in the delivery truck says to me, "Do you need a ride back to town, miss?" And something about him I just felt was trustworthy. So I got in his vehicle and he drove me back to town. And it's a miracle, truly, that man was an angel, that he did not take advantage of me. And I was able to be returned safely to my home.
That's
Wow.
good. I mean, and not all people are evil, right? I mean, so you know, grace of God, you had somebody that was obviously visually concerned and saw you walking in disarray. So that was. Now, have you stayed in contact with him, or was it just kind of like that was the one little connection? That's it.
That was the one little connection.
Okay. So you get through that as best you can, and
Yes.
and you kind of now was there anything you could do to the person that kidnapped you? Like, did you file a police report? Could you point him out as far as what he looked like, things like that, or was it just so much of a blur that it's just kind of a dot in your life that you just have to kind of just deal with?
I did not file a police report because the police had not treated me very kindly, in my opinion. The year prior, I had been raped brutally by a coworker, and when I reported it, he was not even interviewed. And so I had this distrust from the police, or for the police.
I can see that.
In regards to the man who kidnapped me the first time, all I could recall is that he was an older gentleman with blonde hair, and that was it. That's all I could make out from him.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Well, unfortunately, both her scenarios are more common than not if you research the statistics. You're in the majority in both instances where the police are not very helpful to rape victims, and if you're unconscious, it's real hard to identify someone, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so due to having survived a horrific rape just about the year prior and having nothing done about that, I didn't feel confident enough to report this situation that occurred. And I had a lot of shame. I had a lot of self-loathing about it, thinking, oh, well, look, what was I wearing? Why was I drinking too much? And I had to really evaluate, and I do take some ownership in what happened. I put myself in a dangerous situation that night, but that does not make what happened okay.
On any level. No,
100%.
I agree.
Yeah, 100%.
And so when I had been raped the year prior, I felt deeply shamed by it. And in fact, I write in my book about how it felt like the police did not do anything. And the guy even acknowledged what he had done. And I was left, a bloody mess. It was an awful, awful situation. And I go into all that detail in the book. And I felt so much shame with that. I had family members, after I had survived this first rape, reach out to me and tell me that it was my fault. I had somebody in my church message me and say, "Cheyenne, who knows what happened? You look like a girl who likes male attention."
Oh
So,
my
Wow.
gosh.
oh, I faced
Wow.
so much discrimination and victim blaming and shaming that when this happened, I just wanted to pretend it never happened.
Gotcha. What can I ask? What religion?
Yes, I was a devout Pentecostal Christian, and I
Okay.
talk about the amount of victim blaming I received in the church. In fact, at one point, and I talk about this in my book, I'm called into the pastor's office, and he said to me, with his wife present, Cheyenne, you've told a couple people that you've been raped recently. Is that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
correct? Because I was young and I was processing it. I had been essentially on a date with a coworker who
Right.
overpowered me. And I said,
Wow.
yes. And he said to me, if you keep talking about your rape, you will be dismissed from this church. And I was
I
shamed
oh
all the way around. It was really a
wow.
horrifying situation to be a young woman in your early 20s and to have survived such a brutal rape and then to be
Sure.
blamed on top of it. And the police did nothing. Um, in fact, the police officer during that encounter had asked me words to the effect, oh, did you like it when that man put his face down in your private areas? It
Oh
was
my God.
it was horrifying. It really was.
Jeez. And now is this a small town or is it a big city?
Correct. Yes, and I go into more detail and I talk more about this in the book where so many people, in my opinion, go missing from Tuolumne County that in fact
Okay.
there's a Facebook group called The Missing of Tuolumne County because
Whereabouts is
Yeah,
this?
yeah. Where's that?
it
You
is
have to
in
remember,
the
not
north.
everybody's gonna know. Not everybody's gonna know where you're from and that kind of stuff. So the little details help paint the picture.
Yes, absolutely. So it's in the foothills of Northern California.
Okay.
And
Okay.
even people will post online on Reddit saying, why do so many people go missing from Tuolumne
Hmm.
County? And I write
Okay.
in my book why I believe the man who went on to kidnap me three more times within that
Oh,
year is a serial predator.
yeah. I could see if three more times. Yeah, definitely serial. I mean,
Oh, there was a lot more to it.
Yeah.
I talk more about it in the book, but it was a very interesting situation. The most horrific in the last time that I was kidnapped, he took trophies, and it was a very
Oh.
awful situation from that kidnapping experience. All of
So
them
this
were.
was so the first one happened with coworker. The second one happened hotel. Now the one that did it three more times was he the hotel guy or somebody completely different?
Somebody completely different.
Okay. Okay. And then and so he physically kidnapped you three separate occasions, like just kept coming back and stealing you from the world again and again and again.
Essentially. And I go
Okay.
more into detail. So he had been somebody that I began a relationship with.
Okay.
And a lot of times when people hear that, it's like, oh, then maybe the kidnapping wasn't
Mm-hmm.
so severe. You were in a relationship
Right.
with him. But it goes into so much more, it goes so much more darker than that. This man really was manipulative. I was 21. He was
Mm,
35. He was a
okay.
gorgeous man. He really knew how to pull at my heartstrings and pull
Mm.
me in. This
So sociopath.
person was so manipulative, and I
Mm-hmm.
had been so horrifically abused as a child that I,
Right.
on some level, thought it was normal and okay. This man
Mm.
forced me to use the restroom in front of him in the beginning of our dating. He broke into
Mm.
my bedroom and crawled in bed with me in the beginning of our dating. I
Mm.
caught him secretly watching me while I showered, and I had put up with so many of these red flags, and things got so much more worse and worse. He even
Mm.
said to me on one occasion in the early beginning of our dating,
Okay.
because he had tried to start to watch me going to the bathroom. This was at the beginning. I said
Weird. It's a
words to
weird
the
fetish
effect,
thing. Yeah. Yeah.
oh yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
very much so.
There's a lot of people out there like that. It's
There's a
crazy.
lot of there's definitely a lot of dark sexual fetishes for sure. But watching you go to the bathroom, that's a new one I haven't heard before. Yeah, that's creepy.
He, like I said, he also watched me while I took a shower. So he knew about my abusive childhood and he was trying
Mm.
to get into the bathroom. to watch me go to the bathroom. And I had said, no, I'm good. No, thank you. And he got so angry with me. He used my dark scars
Yeah.
against me. And he said,
Yeah.
you were molested as a little girl. You were molested by your mom. Your mom put things in you and destroyed your little body. And who says that to
Oh.
somebody? That is such
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
a thing to say.
A psycho nut for sure.
What was the
yeah.
time frame in the 3 separate occasions that he basically held you hostage?
So it was within probably the first, I'd say, month or two. He locked me in his bathroom for 30 minutes when I tried to get out because he had gotten angry with me. He didn't like that I was speaking while he was playing his guitar, and that infuriated him. And that was the first time
Damn
he
guitar
kidnapped
players.
me.
We're a
Yeah.
crazy bunch.
Really. It was a
That was my
terrifying
profession.
situation. It really was.
I never kidnapped
No,
anybody.
Mike,
though.
Mike never kidnapped anybody.
I never
Mike-
wanted to watch
no.
anybody
Yeah.
shower unless I was
or,
in
or
love
go to
with
the
them.
bathroom.
That's-
No. And, you know, and
Bathroom times.
Mike was
Bathroom times yours.
Yeah, Mike was one of those guys after shows, and like you know, as you can imagine, being in a band that's filling places that we played, you know, he would hang out after the show because he was one of the only single people in the band, and he purposely wouldn't. He wasn't a musician. None of us were in the band to hook up with women. That's not our thing. We were more about the music and building that empire, if you will. So, you know, Mike has all kinds of stories about, you know, things that he could have done, but being the normal human he is, that wasn't his jam. So
I was actually the antithesis of your story. I would try and educate those girls.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know that I'm not one of the people that happened to you?
yeah.
And I wasn't half joking, but I said it so that they would kind of laugh. But, you know, I'm like, you don't even know me. The only reason that you want me right now is because I was right there 5 minutes ago, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that made you excited somehow. And I understand that because it makes me excited. That's why I do it, right?
Right,
But you don't even know me. How do you know I don't want to hurt you somehow?
Right. So
I don't,
yeah,
but be careful was my message.
right. So so just so you understand from our character standpoint, we're empathizing with your situation and just mind-boggling
Absolutely.
that, you know, musicians are supposed to be free spirit, man, and all about love, not about psychosis and control and, you know.
Yeah.
Well, and I watch a lot of documentaries and
Right.
stuff, and that's where I got the statistics that actually, you know, unfortunately, you're in the majority where the police don't believe you, and if you don't have some kind of hard evidence, unfortunately, most guys get away with what happened, and that's exactly what happened to you, and it's no wonder it leads to shame and self-doubt. The fact that your religion would turn its back on you is the entire reason that I gave up on organized religion, right? I believe there's an energy of some sort, and Chris and I have talked about this ad nauseum, but once you put people in charge of anything, they turn into exactly what happened to you. Well, Cheyenne, if you know you don't shut up,
Yeah.
we're going to
basically.
have to ask you to leave.
Right.
Like, wait a minute, I came here because I was broken, right?
Thank you. You
Oh
came here
my
for support
gosh,
and guidance
yes.
and help me, and instead they kind of just shut the door in your face. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Pentecostals are kind of those extreme, you know, Bible thumping, you know, cross in your face type, like, you know, all or nothing type religions, right?
Correct. Yes, and I go over that more in the book. I actually was involved in this church because at age 19, I was taken in by a Christian couple from the church,
Okay.
and they got so abusive to me so early
Oh.
on. In fact, the wife hit me and would threaten to hit me if I upset her. So it was
Wow,
really
you
something.
couldn't, you couldn't win for losing. Yeah. So you
It really
you grow
was.
up. Yeah. So you grow up being abused in your birth parents' home. Then it sounds like you get a little hope with this Christian family going to bring you in, and then that continues, and so you're there with
Oh,
them from 19 to when?
absolutely.
How long
It
were you,
really
with that
was
family?
awful.
How long were you with
I
that
lived
family?
with them for, I would like to say, about 6 or 9 months, and then
Okay.
it came to a head, and they kicked me out. And mind you, I had been it was almost like a form of Stockholm syndrome. They knew I had been horrifically abused as a child. They said, "Come
Right.
into our home. We will love you and be like the godly parents you never had." And they became
Oh,
very emotionally and mentally manipulative. They would even
wow.
ask me periodically if I had masturbated. They told me I had to tell them whenever I had a lustful thought. And then, like I said, the wife got upset with me and hit me when I was 19 because I accidentally had stubbed my toe and I accidentally had uttered the Lord's name in vain. And she hit me so hard, she left a handprint on me. She said, "Don't you
So
dare
you
talk
so
that way to me in my house."
so you hurt yourself in a moment of just total pain. You yell out, "God damn it!" And then it, whoosh,
Mhm. Yep.
wow. Okay.
And she left
All
a
right.
throbbing handprint on
America.
me. It was horrible. So
And then I
then,
wish I was standing next to that person at the time, so I could say, "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord." I read the book. You got to read the book, right? Even though I don't believe any of it because I researched enough of it to know that probably most of it's utter horseshit. That's a whole nother subject.
Yeah.
But for the people out there that go to church every Sunday, you really do have to read the book, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, do you have
You
to
can't
have
just
Jews?
listen to the
You got to read
preacher.
the book.
Right.
Says you can't do
Yeah.
that.
Right.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of things you can't do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're
Now,
not
granted,
really-
and granted, it does say do not take the Lord's name in vain, but still,
It
still.
doesn't give her the right to hit
Right.
someone. That's what it's like.
hey,
Hello, do
no,
you see
no.
the?
The
That's
contradiction.
what I just
the
want to say to
hypocrisy,
those people.
The
Yeah.
hypocrisy of it.
That's the word.
absolutely.
Thank you.
There was so much
And that-
hypocrisy.
right. Well, that's the
It
thing
went
with
so
Christians
beyond
in the
that.
whole. Right. It's the
Oh,
thing
of
with Christians in the
course.
whole because
We love
you
to
know,
get that message out there. It drives
know,
me insane.
right because who judges more people than anybody else? It's and I grew up. I at one point in time I wanted to be a high school minister, so believe me, I get it. But Christians are the most judgmental people on planet Earth.
Absolutely.
I absolutely
They just are.
agree. And when it's sadly, it feels like the majority of them. I have known some nice Christians, but the majority of them
Sure.
have been quite awful. So I had been taken in at age 19 by
Right.
this ministry couple, and it was supposed to be the pseudo parents I never had. They were
Right.
they got creepy. At one point, the wife would even, she came into the room with her bare breast exposed. And there was just this lack of boundaries. And she'd ask me, if I had masturbated. And she also asked me how long my pubes were at one point. So there was really lack of boundaries. And then she and her husband would joke about having sex with each other. It was very inappropriate. And they also made me go to church 5 times a week. And then not only did she hit me, but if she were upset
Wow.
with me, if I did something that somehow she found upsetting, which was nothing, I playfully stuck my tongue out at her once to joke with her. And
Whoops.
she put her hand up to me and said, "Try it again. Try it again. You don't do that in my home." So it was a horrible situation. I had that, and they had involved me in this church where I was so shamed for being raped. It was like, "Oh, well, you were on a date with him. You let him kiss you. Did I ask for him to overpower me? Did I ask for
Right.
him to leave me a
Right.
bloody mess?" No, I didn't.
Nope. That's that catch-22 thing. Well, you're on a date. Okay, so. Well, you kissed him goodnight. Yeah, that's not an invitation for him to come into my house after I shut the door and rape me, or whatever the case is. But yeah, and Mike talked about that a minute ago. But, and being men, it's sad because I've never done that. Mike's never done that, but obviously, it's in that person's DNA, which is unfortunate. And you're alone. It's more often than not. You're just, like you said, you had to just kind of bury it because you knew the police weren't going to do anything about it, which is sad because then the police failed you, and then they continued to fail you, and then this pattern became more and more prevalent.
And the
in your
one
life,
place
which-
that should have helped her, regardless of what happened to the guy that raped you, even if he got off scot-free, which is what happened, the one place that should have welcomed you with open arms turned you away. At that point, I
Yeah.
can't stress enough.
Yeah,
That's exactly
that's
how it
disheartening.
felt. It was a night.
Right?
It was a
If
nightmare.
you had told me that story, what you just did, I take it at face value because you're a woman and that was a man, and you have no reason to come on here and expose yourself and tell a story that is painful for you to tell unless it really happened, right?
Absolutely.
Because then you would be twisted, and
of course, of course.
that takes an entirely different kind of personality, and that's really rare.
Yeah.
I am very
Yeah.
open and vulnerable in my book because the truth needs to be out there. My book talks about the
Absolutely.
justice system and our social issues. So after I think it's something worth noting, after I had been raped brutally by this coworker and it
Right.
felt like the cops did not care, I actually
Sure.
approached this coworker and
Hmm.
I had said to him, you know, what you did was not okay. I told you
Yeah.
no. I told you no
Yeah.
repeatedly, and you have ripped me, and I'm still bleeding 3 days later. I was very
Oh.
honest with him, and he said to me, he looked me in the eyes and said, I just wanted to bust a nut and leave.
Oh
A-
my God.
And after
Wow.
that information, still, the police did not even interview him.
Holy
He got
shit.
away with it. And that
Wow.
is one of many things. There was an ongoing pattern with it felt like the police did not believe me. So
Hmm.
I get involved with this handsome man. He is just this
Right.
gorgeous man,
Right.
and he shows all these red flags, but he's manipulative about it. And he
Okay.
has me thinking he's going to be this famous musician. He has Spotify and YouTube, and he's just charming. And I had
Hmm.
no self-esteem. So I was eating it up and
Sure.
overlooking these red flags.
Right.
And that's what led to that first kidnapping, which was absolutely horrible. He locks me in the bathroom for 30 minutes. I try to get away and he pushes me down and he's
Hmm.
blocking me from exiting the bathroom.
Right.
And he's using violence to do so.
That's crazy. So how'd you get out of the bathroom?
He finally let me out
Oh. And then
after
now
30 minutes.
did you leave the house? Did you, I mean, paint the picture.
I believe he still was screaming at me. He screamed at me
Okay.
very often.
Okay.
And eventually I'm able to leave. And at that same time, he also knows how to pull me back in. He would say
Hmm.
things like, oh, no one will love you the way I do.
Right.
I turned
Oh
down
yeah.
other women for you. He would say to me,
Uh-huh.
look at me. I can get any girl that I want. Be glad I chose you. And I forgave him in my brokenness of being a
Mm-hmm.
21-year-old kid. I
Mm-hmm.
believed him.
I
And
knew so many guys like that growing
Yep.
up through it. And
Mm.
That's why
oh,
Chris
it's
is
awful.
going, yep, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Because being a guy,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, like you're around women, we're around guys. If you put 10 guys in a group, there's one of those guys in every 10 guys.
Mm-hmm.
That's how many of them we've met. They're just,
I don't know how they're narcissists.
Horrible.
They're narcissists who think
But
they're above their dark personality. They're kind of the dark vampire personality that everything.
but they're
everything's
really
everybody
good
else's
at
fault.
it.
Right.
They
They're
always
insane.
somehow have a woman on their arm.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
know?
yes. It's crazy to think about.
yeah. Yeah.
They're super charming sociopaths.
Yeah. And it's like they
Absolutely.
know they can sense the vulnerability. Like they go walk into a room, they can smell it in the air. Okay, which one's vulnerable?
Yes.
Oh,
You had a look or an aura
Uh-huh.
that person spotted a mile away.
Not that's your fault, obviously.
No.
but
Right.
yeah,
Early
yeah.
on. Early on, I actually write in the book that he saw me in a store and he started singing to me. And I am like, oh, there's this beautiful Asian man with tattoos and blue eyes, and he's singing to me.
Right.
Oh my gosh, this can't be happening.
Right.
And he pulls me in very early on. And then it gets so much worse. He said sociopath, and that is so, so true.
Mhm.
As I mentioned, I have much reason to believe that he is a serial predator. Not just with me, but I believe truly that he has other victims. So he has all these red flags I'm overlooking. He wants me to look a certain way. He has me dye my
Sure.
hair black. He has
Oh,
me do my makeup a certain way. He has me dye my
gotcha.
pubic hair because he wants to
So
control my body so much.
total
He
control
wants
freak.
me
You're
to
right.
look a certain way to
Wow.
his
See,
standard.
now there's a new one. I've never
Yeah,
heard that.
I
And
haven't
Chris
either.
knows I know a lot. I'm
Yeah.
not going to sugarcoat it. I've
Uh-uh.
been down the dark roads of everything, drugs, addiction, sex,
Mhm.
whatever. So if I haven't done it, I've seen it. And that one I've never heard. So there you go. You just taught me something today.
just-
Oh,
just
there
made
was
Mike fall
so
off a
much
chair.
of that. Absolutely. There were times, and I talk about it in the book, where
It's always a
it's
step
very
too far.
controlling in
Dye
all
the pubic
manners.
hair.
Like he would not even want me sometimes. I'm a very open book, but there were
Right.
times before intimacy, he would not even want me to shower. He wouldn't give me
Oh.
that dignity. He would want me just as I was, for his own gratification.
Sure.
But like I said, it did get so much worse. You know, there were times where he would, not even let me leave the house unless he had picked out my outfit for me. So everything had to be just
Wow.
to his liking. Before he met his father, he made sure that I had to be just pristine. So it was a lot of controlling behavior, so manipulative, so dark. And
Was this guy somebody? Did he have money? Did his family have money?
yes, yes,
Okay.
absolutely. And he kind of had that air about him. His parents are more well off. They have a large farm. He didn't really have to work too much. He had an apartment on their farm. And he was a bit of a spoiled, I feel like a spoiled pretty boy, where
When
he
you
felt,
said that you had to look a certain way to meet his father, I was like, this kid had to have come from money.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it was just
Okay.
very insane.
I've seen a lot of those families too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And he knew he had this exotic look. He knew he could just kind of shine his blue eyes at you. And, because you don't really see people who look Asian with blue eyes. That's very like a
No.
strange.
No.
That's
Yeah.
unique.
I don't want to
Absolutely.
say the word strange. It's a very unique combination. When I first met him, I had asked, "Are those your real eyes?" And he said, "Yes, they are." So he knew he had this unique attraction about him, and the girls would flock to him.
Hmm.
Sadly, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sadly, I was one of them. But there was just this darkness to his personality. Like I said, I would wake up and he had broken into my apartment and crawled into bed with me. And this happened more than once. I would wake up to him on top of me, kissing me, because we had gotten into an argument. One
Oh.
time, he saw me hanging out with a friend. He got so angry seeing me hang out with a friend. I was not cheating on him. I never cheated on him. That he starts screaming at me in front of everybody. And this is in the book. He gets on top of his car and he's screaming in front of everyone in the parking lot, seeing me with this individual, my friend. Who is this man? I'm the one you love. And then he tries to like run us over and he does a donut
Oh.
around us. There's just this manipulation,
Wow.
and he was always scared that I was cheating on him. And that's what caused a lot of these arguments that turned violent, is he had this fear that I was somehow always cheating on him. Turns out he was cheating on me quite a
Cool,
bit.
I was gonna
Tracy.
say that,
That's
'cause most-
usually
yeah,
the
yeah,
case,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
You took the words right out of my. That was my next question. So
Oh,
Yep,
yes.
agreed.
And I found out about the cheating in just like the most horrific ways. Like,
that's almost always the case.
yes, it was just a terrible situation. He had tried to get with my friend. I write in the book how on my birthday I find lipstick in his vehicle. We're
So
out
this
on
is
my
when.
birthday.
So this is when you turned 22. So you've been with him for
Yes.
the most of the. How long were you with him when you. So you had the original, the guy that picked you up in the bar. You were 21. You said when that happened. So how long were you with this guy at this point in time to where you're coming into 22 years old?
Oh, I would say almost a year.
Okay. So now you're 22 with this guy.
Correct.
The psycho nut.
Yes, but
Okay,
before
okay.
that, before I turned 22, is actually when
Right.
he kidnapped me 2 more times.
Okay. So we had
And
the
each
bathroom.
time was worse and worse.
Okay. So what was the? So I know you write it in the book. So I don't want you to give away all the secrets because we want people to buy your book and read your story and things like that.
Well, there's plenty in there. I'm very open. There is a lot in
Right.
there that will shock people. So the second
Okay.
kidnapping is when he used a weapon.
Okay.
And that was when I was 21. An angry argument ensued on his end one day. He was somehow in his mind that he had made it up that I was cheating on him again. And I said, no,
Right.
I'm not. And he locks me in his apartment for 2 hours. And when I had tried to escape, he threatened me with a weapon. And he
Oh.
said to me, if you try to move past me, as he holds the blade up to my face,
Right.
things are going to get ugly.
Okay. Now, was he the typical Asian, like short guy, little man syndrome?
I mean, I wouldn't say typical Asian because I've seen some tall Asian men.
Okay,
But
okay,
he
okay. Was it like, how tall are you? Just I want to get a mental picture. How tall are you?
I would say he's around my height, but he's very intimidating. And also to remember, he also used violence. And,
I understood. I understand, but I wanted to know
so
how
this
tall he was.
intimidation.
So if he was as tall as you, how tall are you? You didn't. I missed
5'6".
that answer.
Sorry.
Okay. Okay, that's okay. So both of you about 5'6", and then Okay, gotcha. Okay. So weapon to the face, locked in the house, and then so that was one of those things where then he just eventually opened the door and said, "Okay, you can leave," or how'd that play out?
That situation, as I had mentioned, it started to bubble up to the surface when he just randomly gets angry.
Right.
It says to me, you're cheating on me. It was just out of the blue of, no, I'm not. And so
Yeah.
at that point, he had already been violent with me. So I tried to escape. I saw
Okay. Okay.
the exit and I said to
Okay.
myself, okay, I'm just going to leave. And when I tried
Yeah.
to leave, he got in front of me and he held up the weapon and he put the
Mm.
blade to my face. And he said, if you try to move past me, things will look ugly. I, at this point, am terrified. I'm in
Sure.
disbelief. So he has me go back to the bedroom
Okay.
of his apartment.
Now,
And he,
is he going? Is he forcibly taking you back to the bedroom, like knife on your face? Let's
no,
kind of grab
he
you by the
just
collar.
held it
Let's
up
go.
to me.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
like this. And so he tells me to go back. I know we're in a secluded
Okay.
area on his parents' large farm. They can't hear me.
Gotcha.
I have no
Right.
option but to go back to that bedroom. So we go back to the
Right.
bedroom and he's just screaming at me, yelling at me for 2 hours. And I had to
Wow.
somehow calm him down in order to escape. So for 2 hours, I'm
Wow.
telling him, baby, I love you. I would never cheat on you.
Right.
Look through my phone right now. I have nothing to hide.
Yeah.
And he would say to
Wow.
me, you don't respect me. I'm the man of our relationship. You don't respect me. He said, I might look your age, but I'm not. I'm old enough to be your father. You know to listen to me. So he had this very, like I said, controlling aspect where he would often
Yeah.
say that because he did look abnormally young. I thought he was about 21 when I met him. I did not know that he was so
Okay.
much older until like on
That's
our
one thing
first
about
date.
Asians, right? They just look so much younger. They just don't
I mean,
age.
some of them
Asians,
do.
yeah. Right.
And this is
It
the
depends on how
interesting
they
thing.
live. Right.
That is true. That is true. Yes, he did not age. He looked very young. And for the
Mm.
first few months of dating, he had led me to believe that he's Asian. Turns out he was not Asian at all. He just looked Asian. He
Wow.
was Asian
Wow.
passing. He had been adopted by a white family. And he told me one day,
This
and I
is
write about it in the book, he said, I'm not
yeah.
really Asian, right? I'm like, what? He's like, I'm not
Wow.
Asian. Everyone thinks I'm Asian. Even other Asian people have started talking to me in their language because they think I'm Asian. I'm not Asian. I just want you to know that.
So he was
Wow.
just adopted at birth by a white family?
Correct. But he looked Asian. Like there was,
Sure.
I even told him on our first day that I ever met him, I'm like, wow. I think I said something like, I've never seen an Asian with blue eyes before. And he's like, oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
natural. But no, he was
And just
half
let it slide.
Native
Yeah. Okay.
American, half Mexican. He just looked
Okay.
Asian. So,
Okay.
a young
Gotcha.
looking one at that.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy.
Mexican
Okay. So
and Native American.
yeah,
That's a
yeah.
strange combination.
That's a unique
It's crazy.
combination
I
for
even
sure.
spoke to somebody yesterday and they said, oh, I know the man. They ended up knowing the man who kidnapped me. And they said, oh, yeah, he's one of the few Asian people in Tuolumne County because he, it does not look like a Caucasian man. So after I had somehow convinced him that I loved him, I would never cheat on him,
Mm-hmm.
he finally let me
Right.
go. Um, and I was just in shambles. I was in shambles. He had been so violent. There were times I cried and he put his hand over my mouth and he says to me
Mm.
words to the effect, shut your effing mouth. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
very just an awful situation all around. So I go to the police and this is
Okay.
where the beginning of my book is. And I say to them, what had happened. And do you know what the police said to me after I told them that I had been held against my will for 2 hours
Right.
and threatened with a weapon when I tried to escape? The police told me that sounds like a domestic dispute. They wouldn't even interview him.
That's crazy.
Wow.
They said he did not explicitly say he's going to kill you or harm you. All he said was, if you move past me, things will get ugly. He was not direct enough. And that's why they wouldn't interview him or even arrest him or anything like that. I was appalled.
Wow.
Or that his family had donated God knows how much money
Right.
to that county.
I
Yeah.
wonder. I absolutely wonder. I suspect.
That's super. I live in a small town in the Midwest, And while I don't have any proof, it to the people who have lived in this area their entire lives, they would tell you that if you're well off, you stay well off, and if you're not well off, you stay not well off, right? So that doesn't happen by accident.
No.
That's a good point. That is absolutely
there's a good old
point.
boy network in the small towns and the small counties that, really can't happen in a city because there's just too much bureaucracy.
Well, there's good old boy networks in, like, where my wife's a teacher, and there's a good old boy network in her district. And if you don't know the right people when you're trying to advance your career, you get all the opportunity.
True. When you get to a microcosm
Right,
of,
right.
like you're saying, a teacher or a police officer, I'm sure they
fire
have
departments,
that. Sure.
Hospitals, things like that. But I get in the small town for sure. It's probably a lot more, backwoods redneck. Turn the blind eye because it's a lot easier just to say, oh well, that's Cheyenne. Jason
Those
would
who
never
think
do
they're
that.
the elite
Right.
always think
Absolutely.
they're the elite.
Absolutely. And I write about that in the book, where I feel that my bad reputation really influenced people to not take me seriously, because they
I can
didn't
see
take
that. Yeah.
my coworkers seriously. They didn't take me
Nope.
going into the police station saying, hey, he's held me against my will for 2 hours and he
Right.
threatened me with a weapon
Right.
when I tried to leave. And then when he kidnaps me and drugs me for 12 hours,
Oh, this is the third time.
this would be the third time.
Okay.
And that was by
Okay.
far the most horrific encounter.
Horrific, yeah.
It was
Yeah.
a horrifying night where disgusting things happened. It's so much worse than I ever thought he could, do.
How did he drug you?
So what happened was, and this is the third and final kidnapping, was that he had asked me if I wanted to go out. And I said, sure. And he said, make
Yeah.
sure you're ready. And I knew that meant he wanted me to dye my hair and put on a load
Yeah.
of makeup and wear a certain outfit. So I spent an hour getting ready to meet his standards, right?
Mhm.
We go out, and an argument ensues. Starts as he tells me to wait in the car. He doesn't want to be seen in public with me. And I'm thinking, what the hell? Like, everyone already knows that we're together. This is
Yeah.
You can swear. We do it all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Don't feel bad.
Unless you're opposed to it, we're not opposed to it. We seriously do it all the time. So I just wanted you to know that.
Yeah. You're not gonna make us upset if you drop the F-bomb, Cheyenne. But if it's
Okay.
not in your character, don't do it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a crazy situation. And then he says, okay, well, we'll go out to this area instead. We're just going to go out into this area. So we go into this area, this part that we would go to that overlooked the nearby city lights. It was supposed to be a romantic night.
Oh.
I'm still upset that he wanted me to wait in the car. It made no sense to me. I'd already met his father. People already
Yeah.
knew we were together. Something happens where the atmosphere changes at this new location. And it's like the air had been sucked out. All of a sudden, he just got so dark.
Yeah.
And I had no clue that I would then be drugged against my will, and the horrible things that had happened that would occur. So he all of a sudden has this shift in his mood, and it's no longer a romantic night. And he tells us, to go back to the car. And we're secluded. And that's when I start to get kidnapped for the third time.
So how did he drug you? How did he get the drugs into your system?
Oh, yes. I apologize. That is the great question. So he had ended up having a meth addiction.
Okay.
Now, he introduced me to meth. Now, this is actually a very important key point that I discuss in detail in my book. I never smoked a lot of meth. Never. It made me ill. And also, I have severe ADHD. So basically, if I smoked 2 puffs of it, a very low dose, it was equivalent to taking an Adderall. So earlier in that night, I had taken like maybe 1 or 2 puffs, and that was it. If I did any more, I'd get sick. So at this point, he pulls me into the car, or has us go back into the car. We're driving along a secluded road. And this is very important, and it will lead to how I was drugged.
Okay.
So I'm fully conscious and alert. Everything. and only, like I said, smoked at most 2 puffs.
Right.
And he's driving back down the secluded road. And I said to him, "Where are you taking us?" Because the energy had shifted in his demeanor,
Right.
and a
Right. Right.
darkness filled
Went
the air.
dark.
And then the car, everything, it was pure darkness in the car. I knew something was wrong. And I asked him, "Where are you taking us?" He said, "I'm taking us back to town." He
Okay.
wasn't, though. He was driving in the opposite
Oh.
direction. I start to
Oh.
get scared, and I am starting to panic. I said, "Where are you
Mm.
taking us? Where are you taking us?" He flies into a rage, and he pulls off and he says, "Smoke this." He's trying to make me compliant. And at this point, I'm like, no, because anything beyond 2 puffs, I would get sick. I'm like, no, I'm not going to smoke more. So he grabs me and he shoves the meth pipe in my mouth and he bruises my lip. And I
Oh.
could feel like blood, like he had formed some blood within my mouth because he had hit me so hard with the meth pipe. And he says, "Smoke this, damn it." Mind you, he had already been violent with me in the past. He had already threatened me with a weapon. So I have no choice now. I'm freaking secluded and he's
Yeah.
overpowering me and he's shoving this pipe in my mouth. So I start crying. I'm like, "I don't want this. No, I do not want this. I already had a bad
Right.
feeling.
Right.
Something was wrong." So he
Sure.
overpowers me. He forces me to smoke it. And he's like,
Okay.
"There, it's not so bad." And then
Wow.
it was
Wow.
horrible. So he has us in the car and he drives along another secluded back road. Because in Tuolumne County, it's just full of back country roads. And he pulls off to another secluded back road and he pushes me out of the car. And he comes out and I like fall to the floor, the ground. He grabs me by the
Sure.
arm and he drags me up and he had like forced me to smoke more meth. And the thing is, the more meth I smoked, it was the more I could see things clearly because I have
Mm.
such severe ADHD.
Okay.
So it was not causing me to be out of my mind. In fact, I was
Right.
more alert to everything, the horrors that were happening.
Gotcha.
Yeah, sorry. It's hard to talk
No,
about.
I had the other side of a meth addiction, so it's crazy for me to hear what it does to somebody. I have a family member that has severe ADHD, and I know what you're saying. You know, the medication actually brings you back to baseline or even clarifies things more. It's just crazy for me to imagine going through the psychosis I did with my meth addiction to hear someone say that it actually made you so clear that, you know, of course it would be more horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. It was so crazy. I remember that night thinking, I've never seen my life more clearly than I do now because
Weird.
he had overpowered me and was forcing me to smoke this meth, though I got incredibly ill. I was so sick and I had kept begging, "Take me home, please take me home." And he
Mm.
tells me, "Shut your effing mouth."
Mm.
And things are getting bad. So he would pull off to these side roads and drag me out of the car. And then he would get
Okay.
out a camera on his phone and he would start telling me to pose for photos. I'm crying
Oh.
at this point. I'm like, "No, I want to go home. Please just take me home. Take me home." And I'm being met with his anger and his violence. And he is now in control of the situation. And it was this pattern where he was constantly telling me to pose like I was his little doll. And he
Mm.
was wanting all these photos of me as I'm being held against my will.
Visual trophies.
He
I
was
want to
taking
snap this
trophies.
dude's neck like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
twig.
Visual trophies. Yeah. Say that again, Mike.
I want to snap this guy's neck like a twig.
Right. So because I want people to obviously, you know, go to your book. I want to kind of switch angles now. So we've gone through your chaos for this, you know, year of your life, even though your entire life sounds chaotic. What took you down the path of healing? Like, obviously you turned your life around at some
Correct.
point in time, because otherwise you wouldn't be sitting here. I seriously doubt, because, you know, so again, we're going to leave stuff for people to go buy your book and listen to, because we don't want to give all the plot, right? So
Absolutely.
let's talk about now how you've gotten through these things as best you can, and then now what opened the door to recovery? Because obviously there had to be someone or some trigger or something that all of a sudden, the epiphany, I'm like, okay, now I can go this forward. I can go this direction with my life as opposed to going it that way, right? Because you could have gone the other way. You could have turned into
absolutely.
you could have turned into the product that you were involved in, because that's a lot of serial killers and rapists and kidnappers and the abused child become the abused adult. The raping child becomes the raping adult. All those kind of things are it's accurate. It's not justified, but it's documented with. Mike and I are those weird people that are fascinated with serial killers, not so much what they do, but what took them there and the triggers that got them and things like that.
The
and it all goes
broken
back to,
part of their brain.
Right. It all goes back to something triggered them. And once you're triggered, it's boom, then you're going down the other path. So talk a little bit about, because we're getting close to our time here, but talk a little bit about how you came out of the darkness and started finding the light. And I'm not saying that in a spiritual, religious type thing, but just
however it worked for you.
Right, because everything you talked about is dark. So I want to kind of shift and go to the light side so people can hear, there is hope. There's a way to recover from being broken and make a positive impact on other people's lives, which obviously you're trying to do now.
Correct. So it was surviving multiple kidnappings and multiple brutal rapes. Mm-hmm. It was feeling let down by the justice system and feeling like I was never taken seriously at all. It was really looking at my life and how chaotic it was. By age 21, I had been raped multiple times and kidnapped multiple times.
Right.
And I really wanted to change
you actually had by 22 because you turned 22 and then he kidnapped you that night, right? So you had multiple.
I was trying to clarify earlier. Oh, yeah, I stayed with him after he kidnapped me. On my 22nd birthday, he brutally raped me. But he had kidnapped me when I was still 21.
Oh,
so
I got
he
you.
kidnapped me.
She said that.
Yeah.
Okay. I I didn't want to shortchange the timeline.
Of course.
So my bad.
No, I remember. She said
okay.
that.
Okay, cool. Go ahead. Sorry.
So I looked at how my mother was. My mother had let addiction control her life, and I didn't want to be that way. So I moved out of state for a fresh start, and I really just threw myself into healing. And I had to really face some demons from my past. I'm 29 now. I've been in therapy for many years. I'll probably be in
Did you move somewhere, not to interrupt you, but did you move somewhere where you knew somebody, or did you just move somewhere to start over where you didn't know anybody?
Great question. I had a close friend who had moved out of state and set up the pathway for me to move in with her, and that gave me the fresh start that I needed.
Awesome.
So I have been in therapy for many years, and I felt so inspired to really transform my life. Now, there were so many moments that really were shifting moments in my life and in my path that opened my eyes to new beginnings and knowing that I had to completely transform everything. So I took pride in the fact that I have been sober. Like I said, I was never addicted to meth, but I have been sober for many, many years. In fact, now, like, I am a certified life coach and I will be offering sobriety coaching. It is really realizing that I had lived in a crazy life and I was able to survive the unthinkable, and I knew I had to embrace it. It was either I throw myself into the darkness and become just a complete addict like my mother, or I let this trauma of these kidnappings and these brutal rapes ruin me. So I thankfully have an amazing therapist. I've had amazing therapists over the years really helped guide me. And I knew I wanted to help others. And I know multiple therapists who've said, Cheyenne, you'll make a great therapist. So I became a certified life coach because I wanted to use this darkness, turn it into something positive, and to help inspire others. Now, what really had pushed that final nail in the coffin to inspire me to become a certified life coach was when he ended up confessing, which it's all in the book. And
let's leave that for the book. Leave that for the book.
We'll leave it for the book. Yes.
Yeah.
I won't tell you more. There's a lot more to it, so don't worry. I didn't spill too many secrets.
Okay, good.
Let's
and
just
where
leave
can
it at
people
that.
get your book?
Yeah.
So with that, it was the situation of, okay, I'm ready to face these demons head on.
Right.
And I either let them destroy me or I conquer them and I find light and positivity. So I wanted to find a way that I could help others. I felt called to life coaching because I had survived so much. I'd been from the bottom of the barrel, and I'd also found hope and healing. And I realized
that's one thing all three of us have in common. That was what intrigued us. That's part of the reason we started doing this is I went down a similar path as you. I didn't have to endure the horrors other than I was a horrible addict and I basically ruined my life. Somebody ruined yours for you.
Right.
Yes.
They're not indifferent, right? They're just a different path to the bottom. Right. So
Correct.
I admire you for turning your life around at such a young age. And then not only that, but to want to help others who have gone through the same thing, because a lot of people will tell you I have to relive it over and over again when I hear it from someone else. And I totally understand why they say that. And that's their path in life that they have to walk. But I truly admire somebody that has been through it, can talk about it, and help someone else who has also been through it without losing yourself in the process, you know?
Right. Right. So now with that, we want to know where people can find your book, at what platforms it is on, what's it called, if there's a website for it, etc.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry about
We
that.
can.
Yes,
That's
so
all.
it's called Unbreakable, a chilling memoir of survival, multiple kidnappings, and a search for justice.
Okay. And
Because
where
it
can
goes
people
through
find it?
everything from my childhood to the investigation to everything. And you can find it on Amazon. It's in KDP and it's in paperback format as well.
Okay. All right.
Awesome.
Cool. And is
It's a
there a
big book,
website?
I'll say that.
Is there do you have a website, Facebook page, Instagram page, all that kind of stuff?
Yes, I have Instagram, I have TikTok, I have Facebook, I have YouTube, and like I said, it is on Amazon. And I will
Okay.
be, I'm very hopeful that this book will help inspire others because I've been through the darkest of nights and I have
Absolutely.
been able to make it out on the other side.
Right. Oh yeah, for sure. So with the social media stuff, because I want to make sure people understand how to find you. Are they looking under your name, Cheyenne Zoelle, or are they going to go
Correct.
search your book? Okay, so just your name. Okay. You don't have an
In my
actual
name
Facebook
or
page?
my book, either
Okay.
one will
Okay.
show up, and I can send you the links if you like.
Yeah, that'd
Please.
be perfect because we can put them on our page. That would be great for sure.
When I post your episode, I'll post a link to your book with it. So yeah, definitely send us a link that we can use for that, and I'll be happy to put it underneath the episode when
so
we release
much.
it.
I appreciate
No, thank you for this. Has been. I've had so many people tell me I can't wait to hear this person's story. You know,
Yeah.
so I hope they go buy your book. I'm going to buy your book.
Oh,
so
thank you. I appreciate it.
absolutely.
Maybe we'll
Thank you.
Mike and I'll buy the book and read it, then we can have you come back on. We can talk about what we learned about reading.
I
your
would
book.
love that. If you would
And-
want to, if
Oh,
you would like to do
absolutely.
that, let us read the book, and then we
Yeah.
probably have
Yeah.
a million more questions.
Yeah,
I
that would
think
be a
that'd
nice.
be wonderful. I
Yeah,
would love
that'd
to
be-
do that actually, because we really, in the book, it goes into so much detail about the justice
Well, of course.
system and our social issues as well.
Oh yeah.
I'm looking forward to reading it.
Oh
then.
yeah, absolutely. So it's so basically, if somebody goes to the Google machine, types in "Unbreakable Cheyenne Zoelle," your book's going to pop up without having to put in the
Yes.
whole title. Okay, cool.
Sweet.
Right on. And you are quite unbreakable because here you are at 28 years old after living such a chaotic life for your first 22 years. You're a testament to overcoming obstacles. And I'm 20 years sober, so I can understand that. Mike's.
Thank you.
He also came from a broken home and
Right.
turned his life
Yeah.
around. He just doesn't brag about it.
I don't talk about that much. You know, I was kidnapped when I was a child. I don't remember a lot of it. My brother had to tell me all the details. It wasn't anything
I'm so sorry
on
about
your
that.
level. It wasn't anything on your level. It was. We want to go down the path because
Chris and I are healed on a level that I know you're getting there, but
Yeah.
I'm going to be, 52 this year. He just turned 55. We've had a lot of time to heal.
Yes.
We've had almost as much time to heal as you've been alive. So
Right.
for
Yeah,
us,
yeah.
it's not happenstance that we talk about these things. To see the emotion in your face and to hear you tell your story,
Yeah.
I feel for you. I really do.
Thank you.
And I admire you for the strength that you have and
And
just
the
your
vulnerability. Yeah. Just
yeah,
coming-
exactly.
yeah.
That's a great word.
Especially-
Just the fact that you're
especially-
able to be vulnerable.
Yeah, especially
Thank
in
you
our world
so
that's dominated
much.
by men, you know. So so
Yeah, it
Well-
took guts just to come on here with two men that you didn't
Right.
know. Ladies and gentlemen, we just met her along with you. So
we did. We
this
just the
young
first
lady
time,
came
yeah.
on with two crazy guys who used to play in a hard rock band together and
Right.
didn't know what was going to happen.
Nope.
And she was treated with the utmost respect because
Yeah.
that's what
So
we do
much.
to women. And
Yeah.
I think that's a great message to leave our audience with is if you're a man, this is what you do to a young lady. You treat her with respect, right?
Absolutely. No
Thank
means
you.
no, boys and girls. No
Yes.
means no. Do not take advantage of situations. And then I don't know if you listen to us or not, but we always close our show with that don't let the bad days win. if your addictions are getting you down, if your demons are getting you down, if you're struggling with depression, things like that, reach out to somebody, because somebody loves you and somebody will miss you, even though a lot of people don't realize that in the moment. So you're kind of, because I'm sure we could have touched on this too, but I'm sure in your life of 22 years and post that, there had to be suicidal thoughts. There had to be, why is this happening to me? That's nothing but misery after every turn. So I can only imagine the darkness you had in your brain and fighting these demons and trying to figure out what the fuck did I do to invite all this chaos into my life for 22 years? I'm just this human child growing in. So the darkness that you had outside of the horrific incidences, and you had to have gone down the path of suicide and self-loathing and no self-esteem and no self-worth. So, but here you are. And you're championed by your story. You've released a book that people can read and get motivated and know that there's a reason. There's a reason for hope, and there's a reason for moving forward in your life. And it's just, you don't have to dwell on the darkness. You don't have to dwell on your past. You can look forward to a future and actually build that, which I think is fantastic what you've done from what we know so far. Now we're going to read your book and we'll have you back on.
Yeah, other than the time that she had to tell her story, she's been smiling the whole time. So this is what life can bring you.
Yeah,
if you're at a point in your life and you're listening to this and you don't think that there's hope, there's 3 people talking to you that prove that there's hope, because we've all been to a point where we thought we were going to lose everything that meant everything to us.
Yep.
Either our sanity, our family, our finances, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. And I say, I have been at the bottom of the barrel. I have been someone who was kidnapped for 12 hours and forced to use the bathroom outside. I have been at the bottom of the barrel, and I have said, you either take the darkness, you let it consume you, or you choose the path of light. And that's why I threw myself into healing, because I knew I'm an all or nothing person. I was either going to hit the ground hard and fall, or I was going to rise up. And so I chose the path of healing, and I just threw myself into it. That's why I became a life coach, wrote a book, and I'm in school right now to be a therapist.
That's fantastic. Awesome. That's fantastic. And with that, this is Chris Dunn. That's Michael. She's Cheyenne Zoelle. Unbreakable.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Unbreakable. Google Unbreakable Cheyenne Zoelle, Zoelle, and you'll find her book. It's on Amazon. Go get it, boys and girls. Until next show, see ya. Peace.
Bye.
Listen to your sin. Fight the battle.